All right, a common question that comes up in VA claims is, can secondary conditions increase your overall rating? Okay, so taking a condition and connecting it to another condition, will it actually increase a veteran's overall rating and the compensation that veteran is getting? And I'm here to say absolutely yes. Secondary conditions, if done correctly, if you follow all the rules and you legitimately have a condition that caused another condition, then yes, it can and will increase your overall VA rating percentage, which means more money in your pocket each month. I'm going to explain this in detail in this video by telling you where the authority's coming from so that you'll understand why it's okay to do this. I'm also going to talk about how it actually works. I think that's a burning question that if you're new to the secondary conditions, I think you'll want to know that information. And then I'm going to talk about what you're going to actually need to do this, like how you're going to prove this, because it's different than direct service-connected conditions. And then I'll also talk about the different types of evidence that you're going to need. But before I jump into all of that information, please hit the like button, subscribe if you like information being delivered this way. That'll help my channel out. It'll also help you continue to get new video updates. All right, so first things first. Who says this? Where's this authority coming from? 38 CFR 3.310 allows secondary conditions. So the VA wants you to do this. If you can determine that a currently service-connected condition, if you can prove that that condition caused or aggravated another condition, then the VA will award you VA disability rating for the new condition. So an example could be if you have a bad knee. You have some sort of diagnosis for your knee, a knee condition, and the VA gave this rating to you so that it's currently direct service connected, and you can prove through medical evidence that condition, that knee problem, at least as likely as not, caused you to walk funny with a different gait, and it caused you to have a knee condition on your other knee, on the other side, because of the way that you walk. If you can prove that to the VA through medical evidence, then you will get a additional service-connected condition, and that's important. So the VA has it right there in 38 CFR. It's authorized fully. It's there for you to take advantage of. And I'd like to say that probably a lot of vets don't go this route because it is a little more complicated. It does require a little bit more of an effort, and it requires you to know a little bit more about the process. But it's definitely there, and you're allowed to do it. Now, how does it work? I think a lot of vets probably think that if you get a secondary service-connected condition, that you may not be able to get, the full rating experience from that, right? So let's just say that it's a knee problem, and maybe you can't get a full 30%. They can only get like just an additional 10, but that's not true. The secondary condition is rated separately from the direct service connected condition, the one that it's connected to. It's going to get its own rating. So if your other knee deserves a 30%, then you get that 30%. Now, obviously, if it's two knees that you're talking about, you're going to get a bilateral as well. But taking that away, you can absolutely do that. So let's just say that you have chronic back pain that's been service connected, and it's caused you some mental health issues over the years, and you go and you request to have your mental health connected to your lower back pain. If you get a 50% rating for your back pain, then you get an additional 50%, obviously using VA math, which I'll talk about in a different video. But this isn't just a increase you by only 10%. You can actually get a separate rating for that secondary condition, which will increase your overall rating, and that's super important. So now that you know that how it works and why it's so beneficial, let's talk about what is needed. Because like I said, this is definitely different than direct service connected. You still need to prove some things. You still need to have a current diagnosis for the secondary condition, okay? So you got to make sure that you're seeing a doctor for this, and the doctor says that, yes, you do have this diagnosis, so you have a current diagnosed condition. And then instead of getting the nexus between the current secondary condition and the service, you just need to get the nexus between the secondary connected condition and the actual condition that you initially started with. So if we're using the example of lower back pain that's causing mental health, then you need to be able to prove that your lower back pain is causing or aggravating your mental health, whatever that might be, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. Let's use the example of PTSD. There's medications out there that veterans with PTSD take at times, and some of these some of those medications can cause other secondary conditions like GERD. So if you're taking medication and you develop GERD because of that medication, then a doctor provides you with medical evidence to support that theory, then yes, the VA could award you a rating, or a service connected could connect that condition to service by way of your PTSD. So essentially, all we're doing here is we're connecting it. And I think this is important because your body is all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. And if you have a condition, it will eventually cause another condition. And so this is a super powerful strategy to increase your overall rating. And it's authorized, which is good. Now, next, we'll talk about some potential evidence that you're going to need, because like I said, this is different. So, direct service connected conditions, we're trying to show our in-service event. We're trying to show that we had this thing connected from when we were in the military and we went and saw the doctor a lot, and it's a little bit easier to do. But in this case, secondary conditions can be a little bit harder and then be a little more complex. So we certainly want to have, our medical records that are showing our current diagnosis. We want to be able to show the symptoms for that, new condition that we're connecting. And we want to be able to show those symptoms so that the rater can rate us properly, so that we're not going back and doing this all over again. So it's very important to read 38 CFR and know what it says about the condition and what the rating criteria is, so that you're giving the information that is appropriate for the rater to see. So you want those medical records showing those things. You may also want to include a personal statement. Now, a personal statement by itself probably won't help you connect the new condition to the old condition, but it can certainly talk about maybe like how this thing developed. What was the genesis of this, and if you start talking about one knee connecting to another knee, and how you noticed over the years that your right knee started having pain because of the way you walk. You're not a doctor and you're not showing science there, but you're giving your own, personal statement about that. You would also maybe put in your personal statement information about the symptoms and how it impacts you. And I think that would be important to include with your claim for a secondary condition. And other things that might be helpful is maybe a buddy statement. And this can be true in a lot. It also could be something that you may not need. But a buddy statement could be good from maybe like your spouse, somebody that can, attest to some of the ways that this condition potentially bothers you, right? It could be a note from your boss who talks about how, your anxiety causes you to call in sick, or whatever the case is. Those are all helpful statements to include. These help kind of corroborate some of the symptoms that you're going to talk about, or some of the functional impairment, which will help the rater, once they service connect this, give you the right percentage. Okay, and then the last one I'll talk about is just nexus letters, or independent medical opinions, but most importantly, notes from your own doctor. if you can get with your doctor and talk to your doctor about potentially what caused this and whether or not the condition that you currently have service connected, helped cause the condition that you have. And if your doctor can, sees that and agrees with that and can write notes in your medical records to help the VA understand why your current, service connected condition caused the new condition, and they can, articulate that in your medical records, that would be super helpful. There are other, there are some things that you want to make sure that your doctor is aware of when they're doing that. They don't want to just put, I think that this caused this. They want to, use things to quantify their statement. They also want to articulate like the scientific, facts behind that, like why they think that. So that's important. You can also ask your doctor to write a nexus letter. And a nexus letter really is nothing more than just a letter explaining the causation between one condition and another condition. Okay, so that's easy. If you can't get your doctor to do that, there are other ways. There are a bunch of medical professionals out there that will write these nexus letters or independent medical opinions for you. Obviously, they'll review your medical records and talk to you and try to determine whether or not it's factual and whether or not it's accurate. And then they do that. They do charge you. I have a directory on my website, informedveteran.com, where there's a bunch of medical professionals on there. I don't vet these medical professionals on there. I don't validate them at all. So make sure that if you do use them, because they do charge you for their services, just make sure you do your own due diligence. But my advice, obviously, is first and foremost, if you can get your own personal doctor to help you figure out whether or not you have a case, they would be very helpful. One last thing to note is that some of these conditions are going to be pretty complex. You're talking about using science to articulate that, and most of us don't have medical degrees, and so we're not qualified to do that, which is why it's so important to have a medical professional help you out. And then again, some of them are easier to prove. Like a lot of us, we can go in for a back or a neck or some sort of spine diagnosis, and on that DBQ it talks about radiculopathy, whether or not you have tingly feelings down your limbs, and obviously if you do and you say yes, there's a good chance that you'll get a very easily secondary connected condition right then and there without even knowing it. But most of these are going to be a little bit more complex, which is why a lot of veterans don't pursue this. My last piece of information I'll throw out there is if you're here doing this and you're at the secondary condition phase of your VA claims journey, work with a VSO, accredited agent. They're free. They can help guide you in ways that we can't. I think getting this information from the internet and on YouTube is super beneficial for you to know kind of what the process is and understand it and come up with your own strategy. But having that second look from a VSO, I think, is super important, and they may be able to help you out better. They also may be aware of local doctors in your area that don't mind helping vets out, and it might be a little bit less expensive for you. So I encourage you, once you have kind of an idea of what you're trying to do, talk it over with a VSO. I think that they'll be very open to chatting with you, especially if you already kind of have an idea that's realistic in mind and you've put some thought behind it. So to answer everyone's question, can secondary conditions increase your overall percentage or your rating? Absolutely, yes, it can, and it's and hopefully you understand that from this video.